Well, hello there. My name is Renegade Operative, and today I would like to play a game, so to speak. Just like Jigsaw from the Saw series, I want to play a game. And this game is equivalent to the newly released information that we got for Resident Evil 4 Remake. Now, I know everyone and their grandmother did trailer breakdowns, trailer discussions, the whole 9 yards, but I wanted to do something different and call this likely or least likely. This minigame basically pertains to me picking out 15 or 16 questions and going down the list and seeing the things that I think will be likely to happen in this remake, in my personal opinion. I will be saying, hey, maybe this question is most likely to happen based on certain circumstances, criteria, and my own way of thinking. If the question is least likely to happen, then I'm gonna say, nah fam, there's no fucking way in hell that this is going down. There's also the option of being indifferent. I'm just saying, I'll be like that ECW referee Bill Alfonso. Yeah baby, I can call it right down the middle. Alright, so the first question we have here is, do you think there's gonna be more of a survival horror feel? Well, duh. I mean, if you see the trailer, if you lived under a rock for the rest of your life, you would know that this is going for a more punchy, gritty, grimy, and dirty feel. Just the overall atmosphere that the trailer conveys here should tell you enough that they are trying to go full-blown survival horror. Now, what that entails, we don't know yet, but they constantly use the phrase reimagine and survival horror. That means A, Resident Evil 4 is going to be changed in a way that it hasn't before, and B, they're going to focus and harken back to their roots with this game. This is most likely to happen. This is going to happen with this iteration of Resident Evil 4. There's been constant articles saying, like, I'm talking open discussions here, saying that Resident Evil needed to be different for this remake, that if we wanted to do a one-for-one remake, you could just go and play the old game. So they decided to diminish M2 from the project, and they decided to get Dev 1, the original team behind Resident Evil 2 Remake, and they said, make this game different in your own way. And they decided to say, hey, let's go back to that survival horror life. And I think that's what they're doing here. Next question. Ammo drop from the enemies, will that occur in this game or not? It happened in the original. So ammo drops will happen if you basically do some shooty bang bang to the enemies, pop off their heads, suplexes, etc., and they would drop loot or they would drop ammo. I don't think this is likely to occur in the new game if they are going with this new survival horror aesthetic for Resident Evil 4. The enemies dropping things behind, maybe it could be just reduced to treasures, assuming there's an in-game store, but we haven't got to that point yet. I'm just saying I think it would be kind of counterintuitive to the theme if they decided to say, hey, we're gonna put in fucking survival horror aesthetics, but we're gonna have enemies drop shit all over the place universally, and then you're gonna be stocked to the brim with ammo. Survival horror is all about having limited resources, so I believe that ammo drops being randomly sprawled on the ground will not occur in Resident Evil 4 Remake. Next up on the train of terror is a question that says, will there be story tie-ins from Resident Evil Village? Mainly at the end of the trailer, what people spotted is they saw an Aztec sacrificial altar where you would put your grandma on there after giving you a hard time and not giving you any spaghetti at night. You basically saw this sacrificial altar and it was dripping blood, and there was an insignia engraved into stone, and it looked like the Mandrake from Resident Evil 8 Village. I don't know what they're trying to tie in or imply with that. Maybe they're saying that the mutant mice seed or the mega mice seed existed even back then, and maybe that is the cause for some of the villagers schizoing out. I have no idea. I would file this as likely because there's no way this is your ordinary Los Illuminados symbol. This is something different. This is something else, and it looks equivalent to that sort of engraving that you saw in Village with the Mandrake, and that's just weird. I feel like it could be a red herring, maybe, but I don't think it would be in the trailer for no reason without that speculation of it being there. So I'm gonna mark that as maybe it's likely. And plus, everything syncs in with the timeline. Anything could be added, anything could be removed in the process, so I'm not really moving out that possibility. Next question on the document pertains to there being story tie-ins between Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 Nemesis being prevalent in this game. The option for this scenario would be a most likely choice because, once again, Leon's story ties back to Resident Evil 2, and he was kind of referencing that in the trailer when he was talking about pain and that night. That night pertains to the night where he had Ada Wong gripped in the palm of his hand and he could not save her that night. She basically let go and she fell into the chasm below. Leon had to move on. He had to bear that guilt. Now it's unknown if he knows about Ada Wong in this reimagining. Anything can happen. I believe that sort of emo Leon pain is going to be there, and that is reflective of the last remake that they did. It's gonna be some burdens, some dark burdens, but hopefully that means that Leon's exuberant side still shines through in this remake. As for Resident Evil 3, we already know about the retcon between the Plaga and Nemesis sort of given in Resident Evil 3 Remake, and I quote, they said, "The Nemesis project was able to artificially create the Plaga's parasite, first introduced in Resident Evil 4, thus giving birth to the NE Alpha. The idea was to find an appropriate live host that could contain the NE Alpha, which in turn would physically change and transform its host into a bioweapon. However, the reality was no host could contain the power of the NE Alpha, nor was there any means of regulating it. As a result, the project was inevitably put on ice." That sounds like a most likely there, Chief. Next question, will the mechanic of looking up Ashley's skirt come come. Okay, deep breath, my brain has to escape the gutter. Will the mechanic of looking up Ashley's skirt come into fruition yet again? Well, I'm sure the uber degenerates will decide to make it where Ashley is naked in a snowy area looking through the ballistics and vagine because, well, gamers don't really care if Ashley gets frostbite with her ass naked in the middle of Eastern Europe on an Eastern Europe plane. She will be nude no matter what. I feel like this mechanic I'm indifferent about because she's wearing a skirt, yet we don't know if this mechanic is going to be back in the game or not. I don't know, so I'm gonna mark this as indifferent. Can I just shoot Ashley if she's being annoying, assuming the AI is gonna be fixed and she's gonna be protected? I mean, if not, then the most I'm gonna be saying is, "Get the fuck out of my way, you dumb bitch." Okay, I was a little bit frustrated there. I think I need anger management. Anyway, next question. Will the in-game store be a reoccurring thing? And what about the merchant returning in Resident Evil 4 Remake? Honestly, I have no idea. I guess if you wanted to say they could tie it in with the fact that the Duke knows the merchant from Resident Evil 4, then maybe they could do something like that, but we don't have any inclination of what they're gonna do with the in-game store. We don't have any information on either of the weapon upgrades. We don't know how this is gonna be operated. Will you be able to upgrade the attaché case? These are clearly core concepts that were vital to Resident Evil 4 OG. So I would assume they wouldn't be cut, but I just don't know. Maybe they found the merchant to be too goofy if he was. Anything could happen if they are indeed fixing up the tone. So I'm gonna say I'll be indifferent until I see more information. Will treasures be a thing? once again, indifferent. It tied into the last question. Will there be cut content? Most likely, yeah, there's going to be cut content. Look, when Capcom uses that word reimagined, that means something is going to be changed. Now, I would say people really shouldn't just say this is going to be just as cut as Resident Evil 3 Remake. I think they did make some strides in getting back the original Resident Evil 2 Remake team to do Resident Evil 4. If that's the case, then I would expect cuts to align more with what the team has done in the past with Resident Evil 2 Remake, and it wasn't like super monumental compared to the third game that they worked on. Well, M2 did, and also K2, and also Dev 1. Too many cooks in the kitchen. Holy fuck, like you're cooking up a jamboree up in there, like like seriously. But still, back on the topic at hand, I would expect cuts to align with RE2 Remake. Therefore, it's going to be some, but they're going to try to recontextualize things. I'm just hoping that more or less the core experience remains similar but scary. There's definitely going to be cut content though, so that is 100% reiterated, most likely. Will there be QuickTime events in Resident Evil 4 Remake? Well, you know what? If I'm wrong, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say yes. The reason is because if you have the lake monster in the game, which is Del Lago, if you have him in the game, one of the entertaining things about the cinematic feel of Resident Evil 4 is being in danger 24/7. So some people didn't like that you press buttons during a cutscene and you would get killed if you didn't. I think that this is the draw to that game, and that's kind of what made it unique in a sense. So if they pull that out, that's kind of pulling out some of the essence and death scenes that you could get during those reactions, unless you get them during gameplay, which would be a significant change. I wouldn't rule out that possibility that they could go down that route. However, at the same time, it really did make Resident Evil 4 into what it is, which is having danger in a cutscene. So I would say yes, they're gonna put QTEs at least in the cutscenes of the remake, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Next up is, will the gore be toned down? This one I'm indifferent on because Resident Evil 2, the original, was a gory game. You had plants eating off people's heads, you had Mr. X doing a Mississippi ass stomp into Leon, and just total brutality all around, and they cut that out and censored a lot of stuff for the Resident Evil 2 remake. Of course, you have guts dripping around all over the place, but I'm talking about the player deaths. Resident Evil 3 Remake also obscured the camera away, so when Jill got impaled in the face, you really didn't see it by Nemesis. They should go full-blown gore because it's Resident Evil 4. This is one of the most brutal Resident Evil games of all time in terms of QuickTime events and deaths. They would do a huge missed opportunity if they decided to say we're gonna cut away from all of this brutal stuff. I don't believe I'll ever agree with the sentiment that horror games should bog itself down, should not go into that deep, dark dimension of gore, suspense, blood, and terror. If Last of Us Part 2 can be one of the most stomach churning games in human history for the PS4, then why not for RE4? Why can't RE4 go into that dark direction where the player deaths are gruesome, brutal, in your face, and it's a testament to press this button and you won't die like this again? I don't know if they're going to heavily censor this game or not. They did before with RE2. They censored some player deaths in RE3 as well. I just don't know. I'm indifferent. I have a little bit of faith, but it's not super high. The next question involves the premise of giving Ashley commands. This is a no-brainer. Of course, a fucking course is going to be in the game, because you have to tell the AI or direct them to be close to you or far or do something for me, you know what I mean? This is common knowledge when dealing with escort missions in games like this, so they would be completely dumb if they decided to cut out commands for Resident Evil 4 Remake, so I firmly believe they will be included. Next up is Mercenaries. Indifferent. I'm sorry guys, they cut out Mercenaries in RE3, so I can't really say if it's gonna be in this game or not. If it's gonna be in this game and they're pressed for time, well, they shouldn't be, because I mean, they announced the fucking game for March, so they have plenty of time to hurry up and finish it. However, once again, reimagine, cut content, it could happen. I'm going to say I am indifferent on Mercenaries appearing again. You know. Next up is Separate Ways and Assignment Ada. That's going to be in. It has to. There's no way they could get rid of that. You need Ada's side campaign because she has story, she has lore. I'm not sure about, like, once again, Separate Ways and Assignment Ada, two different things. In the original, Separate Ways was the further story of RE4 told from Ada's perspective, and Assignment Ada was like a mini game where you collected a lot of viral samples for Wesker and fought bosses. They said in the rumors that they might combine the two. I don't know how that will work, considering the fact that I said before on the podcast, Assignment Ada is mostly non-canon to what's going on in the main plot. But again, I guess they might expand upon that. I would believe they would. If they crossbreed both or make it fit in some way, then I think this mode is going to be in the game to some capacity, so I will say that is most likely. Next up is expanded screen time for the characters. That's a yes, definitely 100%. 100%, that's going to be a complete and absolute yes from my behalf. Even Resident Evil 3 Remake expanded characters that you wouldn't expect to be expanded upon, like Tyrell. When he was like all cool and awesome, he was definitely a part of that sort of project. So I think it's gonna happen to Louise, and I think it's gonna happen to Ashley and Ada as well. Next up is, like I said, that's most likely. Next up is cutting out the cheesy elements of the OG RE4. Based on the trailer, I would say this is a more serious tone. I don't know. I have no idea. Luis is saying, hey, you picked the wrong time to be on a vacation, eh? You can clearly see the Spanish machismo still going around and still being obviously prevalent in that line alone. I'm supposing there will be elements of cheese that the rats can bite on, which is us fans, as we divulge into the idea of stupid shit happening around us. Of course, they could always rework content stages or characters. I'm not sure if Salazar is still gonna be a midget with a little Napoleon over there is going to be saying, "Get rid of our American friend." I don't know if that's still gonna be in the game. He could also be reimagined as well, which is kind of what the rumors are saying, so maybe he will be taken serious as a more serious character, not some midget that I shot like a couple of minutes ago with the rocket launcher. I will be confident and say yes, I do think there will be cheesy moments, definitely from Louise. I'm not sure about Leon though anymore. And the last question is, will they add in elements from the previous Resident Evil beta, which is the beta for the Hookman, Resident Evil 3.5, all that stuff in the past, where they tried to go for more psychological hallucination aspect. I firmly believe that they will indeed add things from the Resident Evil 3.5 beta, because people already pointed out that Ashley looks like her original beta design, and so does Leon, with his jacket being a little bit more puffy. I think there will be elements of Resident Evil 3.5, however, I don't think it's going to be a complete transition of those stages coming into Resident Evil 4 Remake. I do not feel that everything is going to migrate over from 3.5 to the Resident Evil 4 Remake. The Skycopter stage is a great example, like that one getting cut, or chasms and mausoleums that were in 3.5, or the fact that the progenitor virus looked like Ouroboros, or the fact that Wesker is basically the one who hosted the Hive host capture force and commissioned this assault on this particular castle, and this is the reason why everything is transpiring instead of Wesker working for the Umbrella subsidiary as he does in OG RE4. Some of these remaining items will be put on the cutting room floor for a good reason, because you don't want to stray too far from what made Resident Evil 4 the way it was. I do like the fact and fascination that they could do something with the hallucinations, because Leon is reasonably infected with Las Plagas in the main game. That calls for some mindfuckery, some sort of psychological element that they could expand and explore upon. And I mean, Village did some of the same trickery too. That could be one way to put things into fruition, which would open the avenue for Hookman making his modest return. While Capcom did say that people didn't really grow up with Resident Evil 1.5, they still migrated a lot of Resident Evil 1.5 elements into Resident Evil 2 Remake, a slew of them actually, like Elza Walker as a skin, Ada wearing a trench coat, the RPD shooting range, the crash SWAT van, you name it, is there. Also that nice little hat that you can aim upwards at Mr. X and you could just shoot it off. Like, that was cool. They added in a lot of references from 1.5, and I figure they will do the same for 3.5 as well. And that is it for now. This was a cool video. I fucking love doing this. This was great. Maybe this series will come back in the future for future reference, but I hope you guys really enjoyed it. I know it's almost 20 minutes. I just wanted to finally just hunker down and do a Resident Evil 4 remake video that was interesting and it wasn't really part of the norm. Once again, I hope you guys really enjoyed this mini game, this discussion. If you liked the video, please like it, share to your friends, and hit that bell notification up there, and I will see you guys soon. We will be talking obviously more Resident Evil 4 topics as we go along and get more information. Until then, my name is Renegade Operative. I will see you guys next time. Later.